Today is the day that I have been waiting for ever since I got this book in the mail. Cool Flowers. Now this book is written by Lisa Ziegler, and she has a Facebook page and a YouTube page and a website called Gardener's Workshop. And her information is so amazing. It's a completely new concept to me, at least, and to a lot of people in the gardening world. How there are some annuals that are cold hardy. So we know that perennials go to a certain zone. Most annuals don't really have a zone. And yet there are some annuals that thrive in cooler temperatures. And so a lot of times we wait to plant them out after our last frost and all of that, when in actuality they prefer cooler temperatures. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on each seed and the planting and everything behind that, because you really need to read the book. She also has a full series on YouTube for Cool Flowers, and she also, on her website, if you buy the book there or you buy the book anywhere else, you can also go on her website and get the she does a chapter by chapter walkthrough book study of the book. The book is great. It breaks down each of the flowers and it just shows you the name, and it will tell you the facts. So the full, whether it needs full sun, how to start it, whether from seed or if it's preferable to do it outside. It will tell you the zone that it's hardy to, which you're like, a zone for annual, but she explains what she's talking about in that. Height, spacing, whether it's deer resistant, reseeding potential, container use. Then she has tips for easy success, your winter strategy, how to keep the blooms coming, different tips on pruning, and her favorite varieties of each type of plant. So that, and she does that for each and every one of the cool flowers in the book. Invaluable information. Like it's great, and it's a really quick read. It's easy to read. She's got so much information in there. It's really great. Another thing I learned from her and her website is the soil blocking, and I have another video that I've just posted not too long ago about how you make the soil blocks. So I'm going to start, because I already have these started and I haven't seeded them yet, but I have this tray. So I'm going to see how many seeds I can get in here today, and if I need more, which I'm probably going to need more, but and I will do a video on that, but I ran out of soil, so we will have to see if I can get some more. I think I have some out back, but it's still frozen. So some of the flowers that I'm going to be doing today, the one I am the most excited yet nervous about is the Bells of Ireland. So I got these in one of my swaps, and if you didn't see my swap video, you can go see that and see all the amazing seeds that I got. I got quite a few that are here from my swap that I'll be using today. And I've read so many different things about Bells of Ireland, how hard they are to grow, this and that. So I'm actually going to be starting a few of these, and I'm going to be using the Baggy Method. So I'm going to be putting them in a paper towel, sticking them in the baggie on a wet paper towel, and then I will be labeling that and let it set until it germinates. And then once it germinates, I will stick it in the trays. And we will see how that goes. That is going to be my strategy for this year. I'm only going to be doing one set. So as you can see, I have these little, wrong tray, little squares. So each square has 20 cells. So I will be designating 20 cells to each of the varieties that I'm going to be trying today. So these ones I'm going to hold off. I don't need to put them in here because they're going to go in the Baggy Method. And then I have two different kinds of calendula. So this one I got in a seed swap, and this is the Flashback mix. And this I got in from Rainbow Seeds here in Canada. And this is the Pacific Beauty mix. So I have a very small backyard. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how many of each of these plants do I want. I'm also planning on doing some of these, since they do like to be cold. I plan on using some in the winter sowing method, so I'll do a video on that again when I get more soil enough to fill up the jugs that I've collected. So I'm thinking at this point I'm just going to be doing like 20 of each variety and kind of see how they do, since this is my first time using them. The soil blocks is my first time. The ones upstairs that I did plant a few weeks back, the peppers and the tomatoes, are doing really well. So I feel pretty confident in the method, but I I just don't know exactly how many seeds I want to start in each one. I don't have a lot of room, and I have a lot of warm season flowers that I plan on planting as well. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Okay, so I'm going to start with my calendula here, and I'm just going to be doing half and half. So I think I'm going to just do 2 rows of the Pacific Beauty mix and then 2 rows of the Flashback mix. And also calendula is known as an aphid, was it a trap plant or kind of a host plant for aphids? So the aphids seem to love calendula and will leave the rest of your plants alone. So I do plan on kind of planting these in and around some of my other plants that I don't want to worry about aphids, like my tomatoes. So we'll see how that goes. I had a similar experience last year. I had grown some evening primrose for the first time, never grown it before, and I had these seeds are going all over. I had it covered in Japanese beetles, and I was like, oh my god. I had never really had a problem with Japanese beetles before, and I had planted the evening primrose was right next to my hibiscus and my canna lilies, which apparently they're supposed to love. So I was very nervous. I was watching it, and I never once saw a Japanese beetle on the hibiscus, and they were like literally growing together, like touching. And the canna lilies were right behind it as well. I'll put a picture up if I can find one. But for some reason, they only stayed on the evening primrose, and they didn't seem to do any damage. Like, it kept blooming. It seemed fine. It didn't look bad. So I was just like, all right, well, I guess that's how it's gonna go. So I'm just gonna put the seed packets here in order. And then once I'm done with this, I will get my tape and line this so that everything gets labeled properly. Okay, now I think next I'm going to do the straw flowers. So again, I have 2 varieties of straw flowers. So now these seeds are much tinier. They just look like little tiny branches. Now those I just did 1 in each because they were so big. So these I'm going to try and just get one in each, and whatever doesn't germinate, I'll just come back in and throw a seed in. I don't really want to have to be pruning out, pinching out too many seeds in this small of an area. Like, they don't have like the normal space in between. Just feels like it'd be really tight to kind of try and get in there with little snips. So I think we're just gonna try and do straight up. So the next up is snapdragon. So I'm gonna do 1 tray with the store-bought, 1 section with the store-bought snapdragons, and then I will be doing probably another tray with the ones I collected from my backyard, because they were absolutely gorgeous last year. And I got those for 25 cents for a bag this size at CD Saturday last year. So I have no idea what variety. It just said snapdragons on it. So I don't know what variety it was. So I'm going to be doing some of each, because I don't know. They could be the same as these. These just say Tetra mixed colors. I got this pack at the dollar store. Or it could be a completely different variety. Now these seeds are super tiny. They're like little cracked pepper. I think the only seeds smaller than these ones are maybe the petunias and the portulacas. I have cherry brandy rudbeckia. So again, I've never grown this, but I fell in love with it last year, seeing it in everybody's gardens. So these are just gonna go right over here. And I might as well just do a whole block of them. There's the cherry brandy rudbeckia. Now I have some Clarkia, which is a perennial. So I don't want to grow 20 Clarkia perennial plants. I think that's too much. So on my tray here, I didn't have enough I had to split my last block up. So I'm just going to do half a block, which is just 10 cells each of the Clarkia and the dill. I think that's a good compromise on that. I think that's just enough of each one. So Clarkia, we're looking at just little round, slightly oblong little seeds. And now I know why Lisa recommends using a toothpick to stick them in. I should have done that. I will do that next time for sure, because that would make it a lot easier. And so now we're going with our dill. I know I have some bouquet dill somewhere, and that is what I was planning on using, but I'm not sure where they went. So we're just going to stick with this type of dill. And you can see these seeds much bigger. Our second largest seeds of the day. It's funny, the size of the plant and the size of the bloom seems to be completely unrelated to the size of the seed. And then while I was up, I went and got my snapdragons that I collected last year off of my favorite ones. And you can see they're very tiny, and I have rice, so I stuck some rice in while I was collecting them, just so I didn't have to worry about any excess moisture in the container. So again, super tiny, like I'm talking ridiculously tiny. So last year I had never done snapdragons before, and I planted some. I did the strawberry containers for my winter sowing because it was right beginning of March, and I'd never heard of the winter sowing method before. I think the first person I heard it from was my friend Kat on Facebook. She mentioned she was doing this winter sowing method, and I was like, what are you talking about? And since we here in Ontario do not have milk in like gallon containers, our milk comes in bags, which you can Google if you're questioning. I was quite surprised the first time I saw it myself when I moved here. So all I had on hand for plastic containers at the time was some strawberry containers, and so I just cut the tops off and I taped the two bottoms together, filled it with soil, put my seeds in, taped it, set them out in the snow. And most of my plants did really, really well. I was surprised. And actually I had bought 2 packets of seeds. One said snapdragons, the other said petunias. So I did each a tray. Well, out of the entire tray, 2 trays, I ended up with 2 petunias. So I don't know what happened, but apparently the seeds had gotten confused at some point. And so I did 2 full trays of snapdragons, and I never would have planned to do that many. And then I put them out in the garden, and they did amazing. They were blooming by the first week of July, and they bloomed all the way through past our first few snows. Like we had snow covering it, and when the snow melted, they were still blooming. I mean, they looked a little worse for the wear, but they were still blooming, and they did really well, and they were amazing in cut flowers, and they smelled so nice. So I was really pleased with them, and I plan on doing more snapdragons. So I realized this looks like a lot, like I started 40 trays, and I overseeded, so I'm going to be snipping these out, and I'm going to be doing some in the back as well. So that might stagger my bloom time. So hopefully I will get earlier blooms than July 4th with these ones, because they can be planted out sooner than probably the ones that I'm going to be doing the winter sowing method, because they're getting started sooner indoors. So I have this square left for my Bells of Ireland when they sprout. I also have some Lysianthus. I do not have Lysianthus. I wanted some Lysianthus. I didn't get around to getting the seeds. They didn't come in time, and so I didn't bother ordering them. And I've been watching everyone else struggling with their Lysianthus, and so I'm actually kind of relieved this year, since I'm starting so many more flowers from seed than I ever have before. I'm doing the cool flowers, I'm doing the soil blocks, like there's so many new things. I've got a new shelving unit, some grow lights that I've never really bothered with before. So I figure, you know what, maybe this isn't the year to try and baby some Lysianthus along. Maybe next year. I'll see how everyone else I've been following on YouTube is doing. And they're so tiny. Like I was watching, I think it was Nicole on Flower Hill Farms, and like her plants are like a month old or so, or 6 weeks, and they're like this tiny. And then she pulls them out and they have these huge, massive roots on them. So it's a very interesting flower. They're absolutely beautiful. I would like to grow some, so maybe I'll see if I can find some, you know, for sale at the garden center this year. And if I fall in love, then I might try doing trays of them next year. Well, we'll see. But from what I've seen so far, they seem a little bit picky. My dog is gagging. Are you okay, guys? Oh boy. Okay. Okay, so for now, so what I do is I just take water in my sprayer, and you mix in 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 3 parts water. And so what that hydrogen peroxide does is it helps it to germinate. It helps break down the coating on it, and it helps it to germinate faster, the oxygen. Okay, so then I'm just going to put it on a tray here, and I'm going to take out my Bells of Ireland. Now I only have a few because these were from a swap. I did get, I think I counted yesterday, there were 45. So I'm going to start 20 and we'll see what sprouts. And then if they don't, whatever doesn't sprout, then I will add more, but I don't want to just dump them all in and then I have nothing if for some reason it doesn't work out. So I'm just going to count out 20. I think that's been one of the most interesting parts of the seed swap, was just seeing what all these different seeds look like and how different. Like there's so many different shapes and varieties. So I'm going to start back with my number 1 bag. So you just stick it in here, and then each seed will tell you like what it likes for germination. And I think on this one, because Lisa has all the information in here, it will tell me that I do not want to cover it. So I want to make sure it gets plenty of light still. And it could do, ooh, see, it says sprouting 14 to 21 days. So this one we're going to really see how it does in here. I've seen a few other videos where people have done the Baggy Method. So we're just going to leave it where it can get a little bit of sunlight, but not too warm, and see if that sprouts. And when that sprouts, then they're going to go boop right in here. Unless I find something else that I want to put in here. I went off on my Lysianthus tangent, and I meant to be talking about larkspur. So larkspur is another one that is supposed to be very particular, and it's recommended to just direct sow in the spring. And my problem with direct sowing is the fact that most of my yard where I plant, especially where I'm going to be planting like my cut flowers, is on a hill. And so my mistake last year was direct sowing on the hill, and then we had this huge rainstorm the very next day, and it just washed everything down. So all of a sudden the bottom of my garden was just packed full of flowers, and the top part didn't have as many. So I really can't direct sow in the majority of my garden. Just the part that's flat along the one edge I can, but that part does not get enough sun. So I'm going to save that area for my greens and edibles because it's easier to get. And by edibles, I mean like herbs and flowers, not edibles. So yeah, so these are started. They're in the little baggie. It says number 1 because I decided to label all my baggies by numbers instead of the variety on it like I did originally when I was only starting a few at a time. But now that I'm starting a lot more, I like to put just a number, and then I put in my book here number 1 baggie, and that is Bells of Ireland, and I put a date on everything. My handwriting, I apologize for, but here I go through every time I do anything in the garden or with my seeds so far. I have January, week, what I've done each day. I put the week number and the date next to it, and then I put it on my calendar when I've started. So I can kind of see, and I'm going to be doing a spreadsheet later. Probably, the spreadsheet's probably going to happen next fall when I'm over and done with all of this, probably next November, October, and I will go through and see like how long things took to sprout, when they were ready to go in the garden, just things like that, so that next year I know more what to expect. Like this year I'm growing so many things I've never grown before with completely new methods, and way earlier than I normally would for these kind of flowers. Now I'm excited. It's gonna be a whole new experience for me. I'm growing so many more varieties of plants than I've ever grown before. I'm really excited about doing a lot more cut flower arrangements and just having a ton of flowers in the garden and not have to spend as much at the garden center because I've spent so much on starting my seeds. It's not really a savings. I don't know. But it's been exciting. It's something that's keeping me busy and keeping me entertained in this time where we can't really do much of anything else. So my Bells of Ireland, I'm going to take these and put them back in the little packet, and the rest of the seeds are going to go back in their little baggie, and I will keep you posted on how and when they germinate. Oh, and Lisa also recommends for the soil blocks to cover them with burlap. So the burlap, like I'm going to spray this with some water. Actually, I can do it right now. Just going to spray them. So I'm going to spray them with some water, and then I'm going to put some burlap on. I really don't think this is the kind of burlap that Lisa was talking about, but this is all the burlap I have. It's fancy. Actually, I bought it at the dollar store. I have one more square I'll put over there. I bought it at the dollar store for making my fall wreath a few years ago, and I had some left over. So it's the perfect size to cover one whole side, and then I will have another piece that goes here. So one last thing I forgot. I mean, I didn't forget, but I forgot to video. Okay. So now I'm going to wipe it. Make sure my edge is really dry. I don't recommend doing this in your living room. Normally I would be doing this at my dining table with some newspapers down. But this, like I mentioned before, it's the only place I get any light and have enough room like to set up a camera. So I'm going to spin it back before I forget where everything is. Okay. And now I'm going to use my green painting tape. Use whatever you have on hand. So next I'm going to just write down a list of the rest of all my seeds that I've started, the date, and then I'll have a little column that I can write down when they've sprouted. So I will keep you posted, and happy seeding!